Welcome, my friends. This is Maniacal Incorporated, and this is Realpolitiks 3, a new grand strategy game from Jujubee and Fulcrum Publishing. And a big thank you to both of them for sending me on a copy to check out just as the game enters early access. And as it's just launching into early access with the planned full launch early next year, there's still a couple of things missing from the game, so I'm going to hold off on doing a full campaign until a couple of things have been added, until a couple of patches and updates have been made. But for now, we're going to take a quick look at what Ireland looks like in Realpolitiks 3. So we have a couple of different options. We can go for realism mode. Overdrive will basically give you a ton of additional resources, and then there's sandbox mode, where you have no end goals, and then realism is just you have basic end goals, and then we have easy, normal, and hard mode, which will or won't give additional resources to the AI. And as we hit start, we zoom in on Ireland with its rather interesting and controversial province names. You can change those if you so wish. And the first thing that we'll take note of is in the top left-hand corner, it's saying that we're losing money every month and we're also losing action points. Now, money isn't too bad because you can see that we have debt of nearly 16,000. So if we need money for anything, we can just increase the debt. Action points, they're the real currency in this game. And if we reach 0, and we have a negative figure, well then we're not getting any action points, and we're not going to be able to do very much, if anything. So we need to sort that out. Now the first place that we're going to actually take a look at is down in the left-hand corner, we have our head of state. So very quickly, clicking on politics, it tells us we're a parliamentary republic. Every time you start the game, Ireland is going to be a parliamentary republic. However, and it's the same for pretty much every other country, that's a parliamentary republic, or that isn't, we'll say, a communist state. North Korea, for example, is a communist state and starts with a communist party. We're going to start with random parties in power. So our head of state is Lucan Costello, and he's a member of the Communist Party. And our head of government is Shay Corbyn, and they are a member of the Conservative Party. Oh, that's an interesting coalition. So the Communists hold the presidency, and the Taoiseach is of the Conservative Party. And if we look at the ministries then, basically every single member of the government, and there is a lot of them, is going to be a member of the Conservative Party. If we go back to our head of state for a moment, they have an experience bar, and they have what's basically a Crusader Kings 3-like lifestyle or legacy lifestyle path. So as they gain experience, they can unlock Defender of the Nation, and then they can unlock one of these 3 options. And it's the same for our head of government. And it's going to be a different one. It's going to be basically the conservative one. And you can see they gain experience from carrying out diplomatic actions, economic actions, spy actions, colonization actions, ending a war, and all these various different types of things give them additional XP to unlock parts here of their populist lifestyle. Now, I've already pointed out the ministries, and there are a lot of them. There's the Culture Ministry, Defence, Education, Finances. We can see that there's lots of figures throughout these. We can change them. So if we take a look at our cabinet, the cabinet actually isn't, I've seen worse. So Ula Bree, the general organiser of the Cabinet Council, has a -6 for their skill. We could try and bring in somebody else. Aban McSweeney has a 10 in that skill. We could bring him in to replace them. That's going to create a great degree of political instability. And at the moment, there doesn't appear to be a way to actually change individuals in your council. Maybe it's as a result of the political system we have, without creating a massive degree of political instability. So you're kind of stuck with what you start with. So a much more important screen is the ministry summary, where we can see, for example, our economy. We have some inflation. Industry is not doing great. Monthly mineral resources is down, and trade, that's not good. So what we can do is we can go back to our ministries, we can look at the Ministry of Trade, and we can spend money and action points to decrease that deficit. So the reason that number is so low is because these people, Dara Fitzpatrick, mother of God, he's useless. So we would need to spend a lot of resources to try to cancel that out. For now, we're going to leave it as is, but we click apply to apply these measures. What we're going to start with, the most important thing on starting at the moment, I think, is making sure unrest isn't positive, because we're going to have to drive up taxes, we're going to need to make a lot of people unhappy if we're going to try and drag ourselves out of this deficit. It's just like Victoria 3, starting as Ireland in Victoria 3, you know what we need to do straight off the bat. Drive up taxes, drive up bureaucracy, and gut the military. It's just like Victoria 3 and real life Ireland. I'll be discussing the UI in a bit more detail towards the end of the video, but we can see here actually our political stability is uncertain, and the effects that this has, it's decreasing our tax intake, our projected HDI, which is the Human Development Index, GDP growth is down, so this is all because of political stability being low. And if we were to start messing around with government ministries, that would fall even further. We will click on the province of Limerick. And what we have across the bottom is our building slots. So we could unlock all of these, however they get very expensive. If we were to unlock... this is the first one that we can actually unlock. It'll cost 16,000 money and 5,000 action points. So as you can see, we're only making 666 at the moment per month. So if we want to get more building slots, we're going to need to basically push up the amount of money that we're making and push up the action points. That's the most important one. We can always take out loans and issue bonds to get more money, but action points can be fairly hard to come by. And they are linked to aspects of our system, some of the tech that we've researched, and some projects that we've implemented. And speaking of projects, we'll return very briefly to Limerick, to hell or to Limerick, as Oliver Cromwell said. And we have an empty slot for building, and we have a selection of buildings. Now, a few of these are locked because they require technological progress. And we have our economic buildings, social buildings, there's military buildings, technology, and space buildings. Because in this game, if we zoom out far enough, we can see the entire world, and if we continue to zoom out, we are thrust into space and into our solar system, and we can actually click on the moon, for example, and we can see that there are a number of bases here. So you can basically end up fighting with the world superpowers for control of the solar system itself and wage war on planetary bodies. Now at the moment we can barely keep our own country running, never mind trying to run a planet, so we're going to take a look down the left hand side. We have a lot of different options, and what we're going to focus on for now, so colonization is where we would go to begin colonizing various different planetary bodies, but what we're going to go for at the moment is our projects screen. And we have projects across a wide variety of different areas. There's infrastructure projects, which are going to be predominantly to do with electricity and with water supply. Do we want national water companies or private water industry? So if we wanted to go for one of the two of these, we would need the support of our parliament. And we can see that the major power blocks in the parliament at the moment, we'll actually go over those in a moment. It's looking quite worrying who some of the major power blocks in the party or in the parliament are at the moment. But what we're going to go for is, I think for Ireland a pretty good start is economy, services. So we have investment support, then we have the stock market. So we're going to start with investment support. It's 6,000 money, 3,000 action points. We have the ability to boost with destiny. We don't have any of that at the moment. And the effects will be action point income will increase by 2%. So what's going to happen is that's going to take 32 days to actually be carried out, after which that will come into effect, and then we'll be able to go for investment tax breaks or for the stock market, which is quite pricey. 15,000 action points, 25,000 in terms of money, but like I said, we don't need to worry about the money too much. And once we have that done, it will actually open up a stock market tab. Now, I was saying that we'd take a look at the Parliament, so clicking on the Politics tab in the top left of our left-hand side menu. Here is our system, so it tells us the militarism of our system of a parliamentary republic, the personal control, the interventionism, and we can see where the current value actually is. And that's as a result of the beliefs of the ruling Conservative Party, and also because of certain decisions that we take during the game. If we look at our Parliament, so here's Dol Éireann. The Conservative Party have 46 seats. The Fascist Party have 18. The Monarchist Party have 14. The Nationalists have 13. And the Democratic Party has 9. The Communist Party is outside the Parliament, but they hold the presidency. Fair play to them. And then there's a couple of other parties that can pop in and out of the game from time to time. So strangely enough, one of the issues there that, one of the policies that I had a chance on, the Conservative Party voted against it. However, all of the other parties together were in a position to approve it. So if you want to make certain changes, you're going to have majority party support. If we look at our constitution, we can tear Bunreacht na hÉireann apart, we can tear the constitution apart. We could start by changing the entire political system itself. So if we wanted to become communist, unfortunately all requirements are not met. So we'd need to get the current level of interventionism up to 85. So that's not the system, that's the current value. We'd need to increase militarism and personal control. And if we want to do fascism, we'd have to do militarism and personal control. I think there's a couple of ones like constitutional monarchy. We have to first have elective or absolute monarchy. Okay, so we'll go for an elective monarchy. Well, first of all, you need to either have absolute or an oligarchy. So to get an oligarchy, we could actually implement an oligarchy right now. 10,000 action points. We would lower our debt, or the debt rate would decrease, but then it would have quite a lot of unrest throughout our population. Target unrest slaves plus 5%, and inflation would go up. So we leave the system as it is at the moment. But we have a variety of other things that we can change, and some of these will positively and negatively impact our action points. For example, human rights doctrine and migration doctrine are currently, and social doctrine, are currently negatively impacting our action points. So our social doctrine is that we are a socialist haven. Interventionism is up 8, unrest target is down 8. That's actually fairly good. If we wanted to change, we could say no welfare, which would be supported by pretty much everyone except the Democratic Party. And it would increase unrest. That's not great. But this is basically what changing the constitution would look like. I think a lot of these tend to be randomly assigned at the start. Now, before unpausing the game, we'll head for Killarney. Open up an empty slot, and a bank would be 15,000. So the figure is orange because we don't have that money, but we could still build it because it'll basically just increase our debt. What we're going to do instead is put in docks, and what these will do is decrease the unemployment rate and increase trade. And we can only build one of these per province. There are some buildings that can be built multiple times per province. And we can now see that we have a figure telling us 120 days until the docks are constructed. Now I've let the game play on for a month, and we can see that we have lost a chunk of money, and we've actually gained some action points because we have finished our project, and we're now gaining some additional action points per month. And probably the most sensible thing to do next would be to take a look at investment breaks. which would decrease our taxes, but it would increase GDP growth and immigration factor. What I'd like to try and do is get the stock market up and running, but you can see how expensive that is in terms of points, even though we're not actually too far away, so we could probably just hold off for a while and get the action points needed for that, and then just add to the national debt. And that would open up the stock market here in the corner. Now, if we go to Dublin, we'll say, we can see that over here we have a stock market. So, requires technology stock market. We go to economy. So is this it? No, it's not. This is the stock market project. If we go down to civic infrastructure, we have the stock market technology. It doesn't actually tell us what the stock market building will do. 70,000 money, 70,000 action points. And if we look at some of the science stuff, so if we do want to go to the moon, 40,000 for a space program, 60,000 for a telescope, 80,000 for the astronaut training center. So it can be fairly tough to play as smaller nations. It looks like it's going to be fairly tough to play as smaller nations. Then again, the overdrive option at the start, I know that's what was the default, or was the only option in the demo for this game that was out recently, where you could play as either Germany or Mexico, and I think you were getting like 50,000 action points a month there. But in our poor, bankrupt Ireland in 2010, you know, that's quite fitting. We're not getting all that many action points per month. As the month pushes on, we begin to get some tasks assigned to us, and one of the ways that you can find them is to click on the task tracker, and it'll bring you to this window. The other way is your kind of drop down here that's telling us that war is possible with the United Kingdom because it's the only country that borders us. And it will tell you about some problems. And the task that we have at the moment is economy, total resources. So it's saying to stockpile resource 1, 2, and 3. I'm not entirely too sure. I wonder if it's these. So mineral resources. That's mineral resources, that's energy resources, and that is rare resources. So it wants us to basically stockpile more rare resources, and as you can see, it's taking... We're gaining, I think, 3 per month, and they want 1,900. So that's going to take a while, but we'll get a bit of a bonus once that's done. That gets done. Lots and lots of other tasks appear here. The Communist Party will ask for you to change the system of governance to communism. Political parties will ask you for $50,000 or money. Mad requests that have various different rewards and can be used to increase or decrease your standing with various different political entities. Now, there are a ton of tabs down the left-hand side, down the right-hand side, map views across the bottom. We'd be here all day trying to go through all of them. What I'm quickly going to do is just highlight a couple of things that I like and a couple of things that I'm a bit unsure about in relation to Realpolitiks 3. I like the depth and complexity that they're attempting to simulate here. So I like the fact that we have a full-blown government, we have a head of state, we have a head of government, we have the various ministers and various different positions which are all impacting the scores that we see here. Some of these scores, they don't all relate one-to-one to government ministries. So we'll see the cabinet has an impact on bureaucracy expenses, but the Cabinet Council also has an impact on that, and we can get a summary of it over here. So I like that idea as well, and we're seeing how the costs that we're spending to keep that number as it is at the moment. So like I said, I like how that's being simulated. I like the fact that it's... And this is a really cool idea as well. The fact that our president and our Taoiseach have their own experience bars, and we can see that this one is increasing. It's going to go up by 5 per month if nothing else happens, but also implementing projects and stuff like that is going to impact it as well. Now, I don't know if there's any actual interaction between these people, or if effectively they're all just randomly generated, assigned, and then when there's an election, which is something I haven't seen yet, if a brand new government has just put in, and you don't really have a way of dealing with any of these people. Like, if we replace this guy with somebody who's better, it's going to cause a massive amount of political stability malice, and I have seen people say online that it's quite difficult to get political stability back once you lose it. One of the ways, actually, is spending money that we don't have. It can be tough playing as a smaller nation in this game, but that's kind of the choice that you make. But once you pick a smaller nation, you are fairly heavily restricted in the actions that you can take. But one thing I like I said, is the depth of the political simulation. We can see, if we take a look at blocs, we're part of the European Union, we're part of the United Nations, and both of those then have their own progression trees that we can get through as we try to gain support for reconstruction of post-war reconstruction projects for member countries, and so on. And then if we look at the diplomacy screen, we can see that all the countries of the world are in a variety of different unions. Is Angola a member of Wales? No, they are part of the Protectorate of Secret Word. So I like the depth and complexity of the political simulation. The problem is that with that depth and complexity, there is a need to confer information to the player, and that is not being met very well at the moment. So like I said, we have all of our tabs, and you can go down through these and get an idea of what they all do. We have our values across the top, and then we have this section here. So we have influence, we have HDI, Human Development Index, and we have GDP growth, and it can actually be quite difficult to figure out how these are related. I have no idea what influence does. I have no idea what it's used for. We can see that it is being impacted by our HDI. Our HDI is currently 117, and it is projected to decrease by 22 as a result of peace. Unemployment, lower GDP per capita than last year, is -3, so that should actually be red, and then active modifier is -21. But I don't actually know what this then in turn impacts. Those are the things that are changing it, and these are more... Are these the things it's modifying? No, it couldn't be modifying projects. So I'm not actually too sure what HDI does. In game terms, I don't know what GDP growth does. I presume it is somehow impacting our money. I presume our taxes. But I'm not actually too sure. I have looked around in the economy screen. So this is one of two economy screens. There's growth. Well, this is actually giving us our overall GDP value. Anyway, if you like Excel spreadsheets with graphics, you're gonna love this part. But the problem is that, like I said, we're not getting a huge amount of information brought across to us. And I think one of the worst areas for this is in the politics screen. So we're actually being told that there is a large disparity between our system and the current state of a number of issues here. Religiousness would be the big one. Our system puts religiousness at 10, but the current value is 80. So there is a huge disparity there. Does not tell us what's negative about that. So I'm not too sure if that is negative, if it's causing a negative value. Generally, your goal should be to maintain these two values as close to each other as possible. I don't know why, though. I'm not too sure what that disparity is. That causing unrest? Is it causing some other impact? We do have a bit of a compendium, but it doesn't actually give us a huge amount of information. There's a small bit of a tutorial, but it just kind of tells you one or two things. So that is an area that I would like to see a small bit more work done on, is just kind of conferring that information to the player, because there is a lot here to deal with, and a lot of these systems are quite complex and are working in the background, and they're impacting other numbers that are impacting other numbers that are impacting other numbers. So we'll say the GDP is impacting an actual, both a percentage and an actual value, which is then impacting our taxes, which is then impacting our money. So just a better kind of a description of why things are happening. So if this game interests you, there's a link below in the description where you can check it out, add it to the wish list. I'll be coming back to this maybe once a couple of patches and updates have been released, maybe a bit closer to the full launch next year when we get a kind of a better idea of what the full implementation of the systems are going to be. A couple of different things are going to be ironed out. We're going to see what suggestions come from the community. I think there's some really good ideas here, and it's just going to be a matter of seeing whether Jujubee can implement them fully, get them all working together, maybe do a small bit more on getting information across to the player so that they can maybe take Ireland, turn it into an economic powerhouse, and send it into space to colonize the stars. Thank you for joining me on this episode, and I will see you again in future.